Hey y'all, welcome to TXT Tells All, or welcome back if you're one of our subscribers. So it's the middle of the workday on a Friday. Happy Friday, y'all. But we got some bad news. The Supreme Court has been doing its thing, not in a good way, this week with rulings on affirmative action, if you haven't heard about that. And now, today, Friday, June 30th, the Supreme Court has finally made a ruling on Biden's student loan program, which affects millions of student loan borrowers, including me. So if you haven't been on the channel before, me and Larita have done a pretty extensive playlist on student loans, loan forgiveness programs since the COVID pandemic afflicted us. And we got some relief from paying student loans because obviously people were going through serious financial situations because of the COVID-19 pandemic and weren't able to pay student loans. So the government stepped in and enacted the student loan pause through the Biden administration that continued. And we've been able to get some relief. Now, if you watched my last video on student loans, I talked about the particular part of the student loan forgiveness program that was supposed to forgive $10,000 for some qualified buyers and $20,000 for other borrowers, and $20,000 potentially for student loan borrowers who received a Pell Grant. So if you met certain requirements, you could get up to $20,000 of your student loans forgiven, completely wiped out. That's what the Biden administration was trying to do, and the Supreme Court just ruled today that that was not going to happen. They ruled that Biden administration did not have authority under the laws. The HEROES Act is essentially the law that they were pushing to do this under, did not have authority to do that, and also ruled within that decision that some of these states that had brought suits against to strike down the student loan forgiveness program did have standing actually to bring that lawsuit, because that was a question. Specifically, Missouri was one of the states that had initiated this whole Supreme Court ruling, and it was questions as to whether they even had standing to do that, and the Supreme Court ruled today that they did, and then subsequently ruled that, unlucky for us student loan borrowers, one, no $10,000 to $20,000 student loan forgiveness, and two, even worse for me, the student loan pause will be ending, according to this ruling, around September 1st. So that means interest will start to accrue again, and you will have to resume student loan payments unless you have some other type of way to get out of it. So I wanted to go over a few things. So I didn't get to read the whole decision yet because it just came out. But one of the things that I wanted to point out, and I'm going to read here, is the issue that the Supreme Court was actually trying to decide. So the Supreme Court said the issue presented in this case is whether the Secretary has authority, and that's the Secretary of Education, has authority under the Higher Education Relief Opportunities for Students Act. So that's the HEROES Act, which was enacted in 2003, to depart from the existing provisions of the Education Act and establish a student loan forgiveness program that will cancel about $430 billion in debt principal and affect nearly all borrowers. So under the HEROES Act, the Secretary may waive or modify any statutory or regulatory provisions applicable to the student financial assistance programs under Title VII of the Education Act. So what Biden was trying to push for was, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, he was saying that, or the Secretary of Education under his administration was saying that this was a circumstance that fell under their authority to modify the provisions and allow such a large $430 billion of student loan forgiveness. What the Supreme Court says is they don't have authority to do that. The Secretary of Education just doesn't have the authority, and they're going to strike it down as outside the scope of the Biden administration's authority. So it's really unfortunate, because if you watched on my last videos, I mean, this is something that we were praying that we would be able to do. Hey, Tamara, thanks for joining in. You're asking, how can I do an EIN for a freight broker? I know Larita did, and this is kind of a Side note, but thanks for joining in, checking out the channel. Larita did a specific video on how to do EIN. So if you go in our playlist and check that out, you should be able to see that there. But definitely comment, guys. I want this to be interactive. If you know any information, this is like breaking news. So new articles are coming out every hour. The decision was a 6-3 ruling, and roughly 1 in 8 Americans will have to start repaying student loans as soon as September. So if you have student loans, I know my servicer is Nelnet. I'm going to go on there today. I don't know if they'll have any updates, but usually they've been putting kind of breaking news or new developments or notifications at the top of the website. So if you have Nelnet or Fed loans, I would advise, it's June 30th today. So July, you only have 2 months before student loans will start to pick back up. I would suggest you contact your student loan servicer and find out what's really happening and what requirements are, what you're going to be required to do. And if there are any accommodations where you might be able to not pay if you can't afford, if you need to adjust your income that you're reporting to student loans before your student loan payments start to pick back up, I would suggest that you make sure that you have all of that stuff taken care of. But I mean, this student loan thing has been going on for over 3 years now. We've been in a student loan pause. And each time that we've discussed the student loan pause ending, they've actually extended it. I believe this time is different because the Supreme Court has actually made a ruling. Now, I will say Biden did make some remarks about this, and he said he will stop at nothing to find other ways to deliver relief to hardworking middle-class families. He said, I will provide more detail on all that my administration has done to help students and the next steps my administration will take. So I don't think it's over. I mean, the Supreme Court did make their ruling, but I think based on that statement that he is going to try to still keep the student loan forgiveness program going in one way, shape, or form. May it have to be tailored and not look like, $430 billion in loan forgiveness, because that $10,000 to $20,000 was expected to completely wipe out a lot of student loans for people, so they would no longer owe anything. That's not my story. I would still owe, even with getting that $20,000, but every little bit helps, right? Now, I don't know what side of the fence you're on, and I would love to hear your comments. The proponents against this type of student loan forgiveness say that, taxpayers shouldn't have to bear the brunt of people who wanted to get higher education, took out these student loans, and now they don't want to pay them back. So people who are like student loans shouldn't be forgiven are like, you took out these loans because you want to get a higher education. Statistics show that people with college education or higher usually make higher salaries. So people against it say, why should your loans be forgiven? You took it out, you should pay it back. I don't agree with that personally. I mean, obviously I could be biased because I have student loans. However, I think that eliminating student loans for a lot of people allows them to put more money into our economy and is a benefit. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. There's supposed to be remarks given by President Biden today at 3:00 Eastern time. So I'm in Central Time. It's about 12:41 where I am. So around 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern, we should have some more information directly from President Biden. He's going to give us some remarks about the Supreme Court's ruling and what his administration plans to do about it. So tune back in. I'll probably do another quick live later today to discuss that a little bit and see if that gives us any further information. All right, y'all. But I'm unhappy with this. I thought that I didn't know what the Supreme Court was going to do. I don't know if I was super optimistic about it, but I was hopeful that they would do something to relieve some of the student loan debt, or at least we would have the opportunity for the student loan pause to be extended. And I don't think that's totally out of the realm of possibility right now, but let's just keep watching as it develops and see what happens. If you're checking the replay, make sure you comment. What do you think? Do you think the Biden administration is going to be able to do anything additional to help student loan borrowers, or do you think the Supreme Court has spoken and this is going to be it? I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you hit that like button. hit subscribe. And if you haven't been following the student loan journey and you want to know more information about how we got here, you can check out our playlist, Everything Student Loans, and that will give you the step-by-step on what has been going on, and also give you some really valuable information if you are working in the government sector, if you are working and you might qualify for student loan forgiveness in another way through a waiver program that Larita did. Make sure you check out her video. She has gotten her student loans forgiven already, and she can lead you step by step if you qualify to find out how to do that. So make sure you check out that Everything Student Loans playlist because it gives some really helpful information. Like I said, President Biden is talking at 3:30, so make sure you look out for that. I'll be back on here to give y'all more updates. Thanks for tuning in.